Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I want to talk to you about three important things today. Number one is latest updates from Gaza. And the second thing I want to talk about is some important statements, very dangerous statements that a previous head of department in the Military Intelligence Directorate in Israel stated in a radio show in Israel. And the third thing is the assassination of the commanders of the Quds force, which belongs to the IRGC in Damascus, Syria. I'm going to start off with Gaza. Now, things have not been toning down. The whole military campaign and the genocide campaign of Israel in Gaza is just proving to be a failure after failure. And we're hearing more sounds from Israel saying it as it is, that it's a failure and it's not achieving its objectives. And I'm going to reach that in a sec. But firstly, from a military perspective, we're still seeing high quality attacks from the Palestinian resistance, whether it's Saraya al-Quds, the military wing of the PIJ, whether it's Kata'ib al-Qassam brigades, the military wing of Hamas, or other smaller groups in Gaza, Kata'ib al-Mujahideen, Kata'ib Abu Ali Mustafa, and we're constantly seeing more and more sophistication. For example, today we've seen footage of Saraya al-Quds sniping Israeli soldiers. We've seen attacks next to Jabalia from Kata'ib al-Qassam. They attacked a couple of tanks, Israeli tanks, and gatherings of Israeli soldiers. And we saw, and this hasn't been done in recent days, modified Katyusha rockets. So the Palestinian resistance modified them and they launched them at soldier gatherings in Gaza. So imagine they're launching rockets from inside of Gaza on Israeli bases, temporary bases in Gaza. This is a development like we've previously seen smaller range rockets launched at Israeli bases or mortar shellings, for example. But this is, I haven't seen Katyusha launches in this war, at least, and this is just hinting that there's more and more development when it comes to the military action in Gaza, especially from the resistance, and we're still seeing no significant Israeli accomplishments against the resistance, their capabilities, their power, and their supply. And this is being highlighted nowadays in Israeli mainstream media, and not just like the left-leaning media. We had newspapers like Ma'ariv saying that the Palestinian resistance has endless capabilities in terms of forces. So they constantly are able to bring new forces to the battle, and their power is endless in that department. And they also stated that the IDF was shocked of the level of military production inside of Gaza. So they're starting to admit. We've had another article in Haaretz titled, "This war should be named the war of neglecting the hostages." So more and more voices are criticizing this war and the fact that we're not getting any results, any significant results, any signs of victory for Israel. The second thing I wanted to talk about is very dangerous. Lieutenant Colonel Eli Dekel, who was a previous head of department that relates to field research in the Military Intelligence Directorate in Israel, he had an interview with Radio 103 FM that was also reported in Ma'ariv newspaper in Israel. And they were talking about Egypt. Now, this guy previously investigated infrastructures in Arab countries to know what the Arab capabilities are. And he started his interview by saying he doesn't know, he's not sure, why the Israeli military, immediately after the first shock of the 7th of October, went in and occupied 3 kilometers from the Rafah borders to take control of the supply from Egypt. And it didn't just stop there. He also spoke about a huge network of tunnels in Sinai. And these tunnels, we're talking about sizes of 10 meters width, and he didn't specify how far they reach. And according to him, Egypt has over 60 of these tunnels. And he went ahead to speak about how Egypt always has its resources and military focus on Israel, whether when it comes to arming, preparation, development, infrastructure. He said that Egypt holds a lot of ammunition. It keeps its military equipment very protected. And he also made a very interesting statement when he spoke about the fact that these tunnels that Egypt has in Sinai, they are attack tunnels. And why did he describe them as attack tunnels? According to him, these tunnels are attack tunnels because they are there to protect Egypt from a potential airjet attack from Israel. Now, this is a very dangerous admission. I'm not sure if he meant to say this or if it was just a slip, but this reveals that Israel has actual plans to attack in Sinai. Now, many people, including the Egyptians, knew that Israel's plan to expel the Palestinians from Gaza to Egypt was to ultimately reach Egypt again and not just resettle in Gaza. Don't forget that Israel used to occupy Sinai. They were forced to give up the Sinai Peninsula after the 6th of October war in 1973, when Egypt surprised them with a massive attack. And Israel clearly still has ambitions for the greater Israel, and many ministers in the Israeli government, they don't hide this. This stretches from the Nile to the Euphrates. You're talking about Arab lands at the end of the day. So this guy, LLED, he's warning from Egypt, and he's saying that Egypt always wanted to weaken Israel. This is another thing he said in his interview. They created, according to him, the Fatah movement. They supported groups that are hostile to Israel, and that Egypt has a great interest in keeping and maintaining the Hamas capabilities in Gaza. Now, I spoke about in a couple of my previous videos how these things were stated by Egyptian officials previously. Most notably, it was Omar Suleiman, who was the head of the intelligence in Egypt during the Mubarak era. He made a famous statement back then that they need Gaza to be as a knife on the throat of Israel, as a needle in Israel's throat. And that's why they were allowing the Palestinians to smuggle weapons, because to Egypt, it's a strategic thing to have a strong position in Gaza, have a strong Palestinian side in Gaza that's able to keep Israel busy. And clearly, this is not hidden from the Israeli intelligence, but they're taking it up a notch now by clearly highlighting that they do have plans to hit. I mean, when you consider tunnels to be attack tunnels, this means that you are interested in actually attacking this party, and you don't like the fact that they are able to protect themselves from your attack, similar to what Hamas and the Palestinian resistance are doing in Gaza. And he finished off that interview with a very interesting statement to do with the peace treaty between Egypt and Israel. And he said, there is no line in that treaty that hasn't been breached. And I spoke about previously the fact that Egypt having so many forces post the 7th of October, over 100,000 soldiers, very many tanks, strategic weapons in Sinai, and some of them in Rafah, very close to Gaza, so close to Israel, is a breach of the Camp David Accords. Egypt shouldn't have strategic weapons in those areas, and he is confirming that, LLED. So there's a core realization in Israel, especially when it comes to the intelligence services, about the level of threat from Egypt, and they clearly have ambitions and plans in Sinai, and they don't like the fact that Egypt has so many strategic tunnels in that size and so much military equipment prepared for the day that Egypt will attack them. I mean, he also highlighted in that interview about how Egypt mostly focuses on Israel when it comes to everything to do with their training, their strategy. Everything is to do with the northern eastern border, which is the border with Israel. And the third and final thing that I wanted to talk about is Israel assassinating two senior figures in the Quds force, which is part of the IRGC in Syria. This is not the first time that they assassinate Iranian leaders and advisors in Syria, but this is significant. Yusuf Omilzadeh, also known as Haj Sadiq, he's a commander in the Quds force. He's not just an advisor. Him and his deputy were assassinated in Syria. This could be a retaliation for the Iranian attack in Erbil. Now, the Iranians published proof that the people who were killed in Erbil were from the Mossad. According to Iran, they were leaders in the Mossad. The gentleman who was killed, alongside a couple of other people, they ran and managed the Mossad operations in that region, and they had his ID published and all sorts. This could be a direct retaliation for that, or it could be another attempt to escalate things further. But the position and how senior this figure is could potentially lead to a wider escalation. I mean, the Al Jazeera reporter in Iran, he quoted some senior analysts to do with the military in Iran. One of them stated that going to war without a roof and with no limit might be the only thing that will prevent a regional war. Now, this is a threat. This is saying that if we go to an all-out confrontation, a wider confrontation with Israel, this actually might be the thing that will prevent an escalation. So it's a threat between the lines, albeit from an analyst, not someone official. I mean, officially, we've had the IRGC saying that Israel knows it's going to be punished, but they didn't say how it's going to be punished or where or when will it be punished. So this is signaling that we might even see a bigger escalation or a bigger retaliation from Iran. It could be a strategic attack. It could be an attack on other bases around the area, or it could be a direct attack on Israel. So these were the main things that I wanted to talk to you about today. I hope I added some beneficial information for you, and I'll hopefully see you soon in the next video. Take care.